Well, welcome to Friends and Neighbors. This is our, I think, good addition that we're going to have today, Annie, because you know what? We've got a wonderful guest today.
We do.
Who does wonderful things for wonderful people.
Awesome things.
I mean, seriously, and we're going to learn a lot. And hey, we're so glad you're here with us. And we've got Lynne Saunders, and she is the founder and executive director of Encompass Ministries that used to be Papa's Pantries. And she's got a 25-year whole thing in this. I wish you could see it. I think we have a shot of it. Her 25 years looking back on Encompass. Now, Lynne,
Yes.
25 years.
Yes.
How do you just start Papa's Pantries that goes into Encompass? I mean, were you a visionary? Were you just thinking about, I got to start this Papa's Pantry?
No. I went to Israel. Nope, not Israel. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
I went to India on a missions trip. And, you know, you go on the missions trip, you come back home, God starts really messing you up.
Yeah.
And, you know, there I experienced so much poverty and so much need without any infrastructure. Christianity at that time was illegal, so there was no church, there was no foundation.
It was illegal.
Back then it was. It was an intercessory prayer trip that we went on to try to break that stronghold, and we did. God did. Praise the Lord.
Yes.
And but you know, the sights and the smells and the sounds, and you get back home, you know, 2 weeks later, and bam, you go back into real life. And God was messing with me. But on the trip home from there, you know, this is before cell phones, before we could keep in touch with people around the world all the time.
Yeah.
And so when I got in the car, my husband picked me up from the airport, I had a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And so we were talking, and as we were coming north from the airport, I'm in Cherokee County, so we were going north. We passed through the downtown area and then, you know, kept going on, I guess it was probably 75 at that point.
Yeah.
And as I'm talking to him, several things just jumped out at me like a vision, like I was just looking at things for the first time, where there was a Rolex watch, big billboard, very expensive, but I had just come from all this extreme poverty.
Yeah.
And then Gap jeans, and I was raising daughters at the time, so I knew how expensive those were.
Yes.
And then there was, you know, some graffiti on some buildings, you know, kind of in that background. And then way in the background, there was a church steeple. And mid-sentence, I don't even know what I was saying to my husband, but mid-sentence I said, this country has got so many resources, why isn't it working? Wow. And the it was, why isn't poverty, you know, a thing of the past? Why aren't people able to get on their feet? Why? And that just kind of stayed in my soul for weeks. I didn't journal back then, so it might have been 2 weeks, might have been 2 months. I don't know. But I know I returned from India, you know, in August, and God was just talking to me. And then I started to hear this cupboard thing in my ear. And I'm going, oh, God, you've got the wrong girl.
Yeah.
Back then, the kids were doing talk to the hand because the ears ain't listening.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did that to God.
No.
And he's got a sense of humor.
Yes.
But when I really started to sense that presence, sense that calling, you know, I was working full time. I was homeschooling 2 of my 3 daughters. I was in Mount Perrin Choir with full-time commitment. So I mean, my plate was full.
Yes.
In the pantry world, you use food jokes all the time. So my plate, I was spinning a lot of plates.
Yeah.
And I started then say, okay, God, if this is really you've got to name it. You got to bring me people. I have no idea how this is supposed to work. I'd never volunteered in a food pantry before. Our church didn't have one. And I was kind of hoping maybe they were praying in somebody to launch this for them.
Yeah.
So I went to them and they're like, no, Lynne, we're not we're not doing that, but we'll pray for you. And I was like, great, thanks.
Oh, good.
But you know, once I said yes to God, once I understood, I believed for the first time that He really was calling my name. And I think so often we're raised in church and we're told that, and it's all head knowledge, but seldom do we just embrace that and go, oh, maybe that is me. Maybe that is for me. Yes. And for the first time I started to realize maybe I really am hearing from God. So I said, okay, I'll be hands and feet. You got to do all the rest.
Yeah.
And within a week, in a dream he named at Papa's Pantry.
Was your husband in on this with you?
Sort of, yeah. Yes, he was absolutely in the pantry. It
Yes.
was when I left my full-time job. That
Yeah.
was the sort of part. You know, 5.5 years later, though.
Oh.
But those first 5.5 years, it was home delivery. So I was working Monday through Friday, corporately here in Atlanta, and doing, you know, evenings and weekends in people's kitchens and living rooms, bringing them food. It ran out of my basement where all the non-perishables were
Well,
stored.
how did you get the food?
I was part of a cell group, a fellowship group, when I first launched it, and I kind of announced it to them, and they just took over, and they got shelving for me, they got food drives for me, and word of mouth. And so my phone would ring, or I would get a phone number, and I'd call people and just get to know them on the phone, and stop at the grocery store for the perishable stuff. So I was buying that out of my own money, because I didn't have a bank account. I mean, we were kind of starting and whatnot, but those early days, you just did what God said the next step was.
So did you go pick the food up, or did they bring it to you? or-
Both. Now, I would pick it up from the grocery store. Certainly, I would shop.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the non-perishables, oh, I've had tons of scouts bringing, you know, groceries in the house and down to the basement. And of course,
Really?
then I would have to pack it out for the folks that I would take it to in their homes. And I was praying, Lord, one day I'm not going to have all these steps, because I just felt like I was schlepping, you know, all these pounds. Keeping strong.
Oh, keep it strong.
Yeah, keeping strong.
Well, then, okay, how did you know who to take it to?
Word of mouth, just people from my church, from my choir, colleagues that I worked with corporately, neighbors who knew me, who knew of somebody. And, you know, I would have them call me first, because it's kind of disrespectful to say, hey, I understand you're in tough times and you need food.
Yeah.
People are very prideful sometimes and very protective of who knows what. So I
Well.
would just have them call me and just talk to them, and, you know, basically said, okay, broccoli's on sale this week. Does anybody in your house eat broccoli? And,
love it.
you know, one of the favorite things that I would walk in the house with was bananas. You remember the commercial, or the cartoons when we were little, when I was little, where you'd have that cartoon character with a banana and it would just
Yeah.
kind of shove. I have seen hundreds of children just do that.
Really?
It was better than candy. They just take it out of the bag and it went. And, you know, that moves you. That
Yes,
moves
that
you.
keeps you motivated.
What
to
keeps
keep
you
going.
motivated too was I had never encountered empty refrigerators or empty cabinets ever before in my life.
Oh.
Until I started taking food to people's homes. You learn a lot about people in their homes.
Yes.
And, you know, when you come home from the grocery store, I was going to them right from the grocery store. The first thing you do is put cold stuff away. So I would just open up refrigerators and freezers to put cold meat, milk, and produce. That's what I was buying, supplementing it with the canned stuff that had been donated as non-perishables. But that's when I first started to see empty freezers and empty refrigerators. And I'm like, how do people do this? So then I started opening up their cabinets, empty.
Oh.
And so that happened early on in my experiences, which led me to the next question: why? The why behind the what. Why don't you have enough to feed your kids, or what's happening?
Yes.
And so they would talk to me about how they've lost a job, or the bank messed them up. That was code for I have no idea how to manage my money. And so we would just talk, you know, like, okay, I've got some experience in this. Let me help you with this job search. And it's a corporation that I was working.
But so you went from the food, it just went naturally into helping people with training.
Yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't a drop off, good luck to you, let me know if
See
you
ya.
need any other help, but it was like, no, what else can I do? Bringing food, although it is the easy part of the ministry, it takes a lot of work to, you know, to move and carry and do all that stuff with the product.
Yes.
It is work. But when it comes to really making a change in somebody's life, not just for dinner or for breakfast, but for their life, you really, it's an investment of yourself. And doing that respectfully. Like, what do you mean you don't have a job? Well, get off your rear end. You know,
Yeah.
none of that. It was like, my gosh, tell me the story. What are you skilled in? Let me help you.
Yes. Wow.
And And so then they would get that job and celebrate. And so then they would have income. I said, can I help you understand money management? We didn't have the phones and devices that we have now. We had paper statements. And I would teach them how to balance their checkbook against their statements. I have seen more envelopes open in front of my eyes of bills that weren't open because they were afraid of what was in the bills.
We got to take a break, Lynne.
Okay, well,
We're going to take just a short break. But, this is so interesting. I love stories like this. And we'll be right back in just a moment with more of the Lynne Saunders. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us. Well, welcome back. We're Annie and I are here with Lynne Saunders, who is with Encompass Ministries, and it's so interesting, isn't it?
It is, very much so. And it is my joy, first of all, to meet you today.
Oh,
You're
thank
such
you.
a beautiful woman of God with a beautiful heart.
Oh, thank you.
And one of the statements that you made, I read, you said, no one goes to bed hungry. I thought that statement was so profound and so prolific. Talk to us about that when you said no one goes to bed hungry.
Well, God has put me in such a great position, in our community. We've been there for 25 years, and in the same location, open to the public location for about 19. And we've become like this lighthouse.
Yeah.
And people in the neighborhoods that surround us, and even the counties that surround us, know of what we do. And so they come. And the way our shelves are set up is they're able to select food off the shelves that they want to take home. We don't give them a bag and say good luck or a box, with the exception of there is a special outreach that we do with a food box. But when they come to us, they're coming for hope, they're coming for prayer, they're coming for food, and it's good food that they get to take home to their families, not a box or a bag loaded up with stuff that they don't eat.
Yeah.
Right.
And we tell them, you take a week's worth. You take more than that if you need that. Because I remember those empty refrigerators and cabinets and freezers, and I don't know what they have in their home. So when they are taking, typically people don't take enough. And we're saying, you've got 4 teenage boys. My goodness, you need to take home a whole lot more. And so, but that we get to know our families and get their trust and their respect. And so they take enough, and so they don't go to bed hungry. There is no reason for anybody to. If they do, they don't know about us.
Yes.
We are blessed in our part of the world. There are other food pantries, to kind of fill in the gaps. But we've got a program, several programs in place to where we are truly helping them with the job search, getting jobs, and it happens for them pretty quickly if they'll follow the kind of the suggestions that we're teaching, and whatnot. They get those jobs, and when they have that money, or if they come into us with an income, we do a financial assessment with their permission. Again, this is called our partnership.
Right.
They do their part, we do our part. And because a lot of people want you to do it for them, and you can't do that. I mean, you just can't go to their interviews with them. They have to be able to do things, on their own. But we're coaching the whole way, and we're praying in the background and foreground with them.
Well, but so you were named Papa's Pantry first, but now you're called Encompass.
We are called Encompass.
Tell me why. Was it because you do all these many other veritable plethora of things?
Yes, that's exactly it. Before COVID, people have really gotten to know about our jobs training. I say jobs training, it's really not how to do the job, but it is more of how to get the job.
Get a job,
How to get the job and how to keep it. Because some people don't always know to show up maybe 10 minutes early or do things like that. But and then we get them to the financial side, and typically they are on their feet within a matter of 6-8 weeks with $1,000 in their emergency fund that they have saved on their own. We're still supplementing with the food, so they're able to take some of those dollars from that bucket into the savings account bucket. But people started to learn about what we teach, and so they would invite a pantry to come in to do some training, and kind of exploded. This is before COVID, certainly, where drug and alcohol addictions programs were inviting us to come do
Wow.
life skills
That's awesome.
with their residents who were really working to get on their feet, working to clean up how do I do life without the addiction and without those old patterns. And we would certainly, help with the budgeting and all that too. And, expanded to at-risk youth. So how about doing some prevention?
Yeah.
So that really, made my heart happy to be able to go into other organizations that already were operating, and we just came in and maybe told them the same thing. It was just a different person, or we would just give them like a new. If you say something that's a little bit differently, all of a sudden doors and light bulbs go off. And I think a lot of that was happening. And so people are like, but you're a food pantry. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And so we talked about it as a board on and off for a couple of years as my board of directors. And one of them said, you're right, Papa's Pantry just doesn't encompass all that we do.
Yeah.
And so 20 minutes later, I'm driving home and it's like God was going, bing, bing, bing. Encompass, that's right,
That's it,
Encompass
yeah.
Ministries is the name. And so we rebranded in 2019, not quite a year before COVID hit. And but we still go by both. Some people still know Papa's Pantry. And I'll say, oh, yeah, I'm in with Encompass. And they go, oh, okay, Papa's Pantry. Oh, yeah, we know that.
Well,
But,
now, okay, you were saying word of mouth at the beginning.
Yes.
About the Papa's Pantry, the food
Right,
coming
right.
and all that. Now, you still have food, right?
I still do a lot of food. We do a lot of food.
It still can't be word of mouth.
Sometimes it is, but we always ask, how did you hear about us?
Yeah.
And 99 times out of 100, it's, I Googled it. Online,
yeah.
food pantry near me. And so that's how people find us. But sometimes people have know somebody who's been through our training programs, and they saw the success of their friend get that job that was paying enough, for their family's needs, and we were able to help them understand when they could say yes to their family about certain expenses, or when they had to say no, not now, but maybe next week, according to the spreadsheet, because we always work with the finances with a 3-month forecast. It's not just the next paycheck, it's next season. Pretty soon we're going to be having them look at Christmas needs, and how are you going to do that? How are you going to budget for that?
Oh, yeah.
And we really want them always looking ahead, not be reactive, but really be proactive.
Well, is that part of the Master's Training
That is-
Center?
It is. That is the Master's Training
Well,
Center.
now, is that a separate place other than the food?
It is.
pantry?
It is the same building.
Okay.
We've got an entire building. When we started in this building, we had 2 suites of the 4, and over the years, we just kind of bumped the next neighbor out in the last one. So we've got the whole building now.
So I want to say this. You've got Encompass Ministries, the dinner gala.
I do.
That's coming up. You've been doing this 25 years.
I know. A friend of mine said to me a couple weeks ago, that's a quarter of a century. It was like, oh, thank you for that.
So,
Yeah.
so you're gonna you're gonna have sponsors.
Yes.
And you're gonna have Joey Jones there.
Yes.
For this, but how? I've only got a minute to get into that. But is it to help to put you more into the forefront, your 25-year dinner gala?
It is a celebration of God's goodness and provision all through the 25 years. When we had a bad recession years ago, I know several people who were running nonprofits that dried up because their donor base was not able to support them. The community was not able to keep them going in different fields. God sustained us. We're kind of in some rough patches right now with the economy, and God is sustaining us. So it is a celebration. It's a fundraiser also. I've got some big dreams about a bigger building, and the next year, how are we going to expand?
Well, we've got to. Thank you, Lynn. It's too quick.
Thank you.
We needed more time, didn't we?
That was it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we needed more time.
Thank you.
Hey, stay
God
with us. We're
bless
going to take a break. Yes, but we'll be right back. We'll have a little bit of more friends and neighbors. But thank you. I want you to come back and finish more with this.
You can. You just call me anytime.
I'm calling you, and you call Lynn too, Lynn Saunders with Encompass.
You're sweet.
Well, welcome back to Friends and Neighbors. And I tell you, we had such a wonderful time, a wonderful interview with Lynne Saunders, Encompass Ministries. And one thing, my takeaway from her is that you can give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. Yes. But if you teach them how to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. Yes. And with her, she was doing both.
Great interview. And you know, her Encompass Ministries dinner gala is going to be Thursday, September the 14th. And you know, you might want to reach Lynne, and you can go to Encompass Ministries Incorporated.org. You might look into that, write it down, keep it. But you know what I took away from it was, by this shall all men know that you're my disciples, that you have love one for another. Mm-hmm. And Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. And like I said, for self, you're going to take care of self.
Right.
If at all possible, right. You're going to feed self, bathe self, you're going to get the information, you're going to go to school, you're going to learn, you're going to do the best you can for self. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and to me, Lynne is the epitome of that. She's right. Doing it all, like you said. She's giving the fish, but she's teaching the fish. Right. But, you know, another thing, she had to have a willing heart right. to do what she started, because she took on a great task.
Yes, she did. And
you just think, there she was working, homeschooling 2 daughters, singing in the choir and going to church, and like she said, she's spinning many plates. She was willing to take on what God said to do. And look how God blessed it. It's so many genres now that she does, and look how long it's lasted. Wow. 25 years. And
that's the blessing of the Lord.
Evidently, it's not, I don't see it slowing down. Yeah. I don't see it stopping. And you know, if you love one another as I have loved you, what'd he do? Mm-hmm. What'd Jesus do? Mm-hmm. He laid down his life mm-hmm. for us. And in a sense, like Lynne, she laid her life down, that part, because she could have spent that time vacationing or doing things with her kids mm-hmm. or having more free time or whatever. But she laid that part down for her neighbor that she doesn't even know. Yes. You know, it's one thing to help people that we know, Annie.
Right, exactly.
It is, but to help someone, not just someone, but many. Mm-hmm. You think of the hundreds, probably thousands. Yes. That look what a treasure she's laid up in heaven. Well done, thy good and faithful servant.
I was about to say that.
Yeah,
well done.
Enter into the joys of the Lord.
Yes.
But you know, she remembered those refrigerators, and just like me, I can remember the people in the countries, third world countries I've been to, starving to death. 5,000 children a day, I read, starved to death. Wow. 5,000 just children. But look what a difference Lynne Saunders has mm-hmm. made just by following, thus saith the Lord to you.
Mm-hmm. One thing the Lord's going to ask, I was hungry. Mm-hmm. But you didn't feed me. Mm-hmm. But she won't have that testimony.
No.
She's going to do she's doing exactly what the Holy Spirit is leading her to do.
Yes.
She's feeding the hungry.
Amen.
She's clothing the naked.
And giving them a job.
Yeah.
Give a job.
Yes.
I mean, that is so. I mean, so many things. I can understand Papa's Pantry to some degree, but now she teaches all this master's training center to help you get a job, mm-hmm. how to manage money. I might go there. Could I come, Lynne? You know, but you think what God can do through one person.
One person, a willing heart.
A willing heart, yes. One person has made the difference, probably mm-hmm. life or death. Yes. In the homes that she has gone into, and in the life of that person where they were going mm-hmm. from having nothing to having a wonderful job, having an income, and not having to go to Papa's Pantries anymore. You see what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it's a life-changing ministry that she has, not just food, but for your income, your future, your children, the whole thing. But anyway, we got to go. Thank you, Miss Eddie.
you.
You're
Thank
precious.
you.
I love
Thank
you.
you. I
So
love you.
wonderful. We thank you for being here with us on Friends
Yes.
and Neighbors. We hope we've encouraged you and given you some information for daily life and to know Jesus Christ as your Savior. God bless. See you next time here on Friends and Neighbors.